My name's Jessica Davis, and I'm 38. After nearly 20 years of grinding away in construction and real estate development, I finally achieved the dream I'd worked so hard for, a sleek, modern villa perched on a hill in Santa Clara. From here, the view stretches across the entire valley, and at night, the lights below look like a blanket of stars. Every inch of this house, every brick, the detailed ceilings, the floor-to-ceiling glass panels on the south side represents years of relentless effort, sweat, and determination. This house isn't just a home, it's the proof that I've conquered every stereotype, every whisper behind my back, and every ounce of disrespect thrown my way. The housewarming was set for tomorrow afternoon. I had everything lined up, a professional event crew, catering from my favorite French bistro, and every little detail planned out for the people who had supported me through the hard years. But when I returned home this morning to double-check everything, I froze at the front door. The key was still in my hand, but I hadn't turned it yet. Inside, I could hear a voice I'd rather not hear right now, my sister Emily's voice. "Don't you think this place is perfect for a wedding? The mezzanine would be great for the stage, and the backyard's big enough for a reception tent," she was saying. Confusion and anger simmered inside me as I walked in. Emily was standing in the main hall, the smell of fresh walnut wood still hanging in the air, talking to a blonde woman I assumed was a wedding planner. They were excitedly discussing white orchids and warm lighting, as though this house was theirs. "Emily," I called her name with a controlled but firm tone. "What are you doing here?" She turned to me, her face lighting up like she'd just hit the jackpot. "Oh, you're back. I thought Mom and Dad told you. They decided to give me this house as a wedding gift. Greg and I are going to start our family here." I stood there, frozen. Memories flooded my mind, working endless nights with blueprints scattered around, the constant tweaking of specs, and the grind to secure funding. I had sacrificed my personal life, ignored relationships, all for this. And now, Emily, pampered and coddled her whole life, unable to hold a steady job for more than 3 months, was treating my dream like it was hers by default. "This is my house," I said, forcing my voice to stay calm. "I invested everything, my savings, my time, my effort, into building this." Emily gave me that familiar, pitying smile, the one she'd used on me since high school. "But you live alone. You don't need a house this big. Mom and Dad said you'd understand if you thought about the family a little." That's when the door creaked open, and my parents walked in without so much as a knock. Mom immediately started talking to the wedding planner, pointing out where the floral arch should go. My dad couldn't meet my eyes. "What's going on?" I demanded, my voice sharp now. "Mom, Dad, why is there a wedding being planned in my house?" "Jessica," my mom said, her tone all sweetness and manipulation, "Emily's getting married, and this house is just too big for one person. You're always busy and hardly ever home. We thought it'd be better for Emily to live here." I felt the weight of disbelief hit me like a freight train. I had to steady myself against the railing of the stairs for a second. Betrayal by my own flesh and blood. But then, something inside me snapped. I clenched my fists, my eyes hardening with cold fury. No way was I going to let them treat my success like a family hand-me-down. "Everyone out. Now." Emily's eyes widened, her mouth about to open to argue, but my dad beat her to it. His voice dropped into that condescending, "I'm the adult here" tone. "Jessica, don't make this into something it's not. This is for the good of the family. You're successful, you can build another house whenever you want. But Emily's starting a family. She needs a stable home." I let out a bitter laugh that bounced off the marble floors, the same marble I personally selected in Italy and had shipped halfway across the world. "So, because I'm capable, I should just give up everything for someone who won't even lift a finger?" Emily stepped forward then, her eyes full of feigned confidence. "You just don't get it. This time, I'm serious. Greg and I are really trying. Mom and Dad just want to help us get a good start. A solid foundation." I met each of their eyes, my voice steady but cutting. "One that you didn't even break a sweat for?" The tension in the room thickened. My mom, nervously tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, a telltale sign when she felt cornered, gave me a strained smile. "Jessica, you seem a bit tired. Let's not make this a fight. Anyway, your dad handled all the paperwork, right?" Legally, there might still be some flexibility. I narrowed my eyes. In that moment, everything clicked. This wasn't some impulsive mistake, it was a well-thought-out move, cleverly wrapped up as a wedding gift. I wasn't going to let it slide anymore. Without hesitation, I walked over to the dining table, pulled open my laptop, and typed in a few quick commands. Turning the screen towards them, I made my point crystal clear. Here's the full legal documentation: construction contracts, city-approved permits, invoices for materials, contractor payments, all from my personal account. And most importantly, I opened a folder labeled Property Deed. This folder contains a scanned copy of the ownership certificate. It's under my name, Jessica M. Davis. This villa is legally mine. There is no one else on the title, not even our parents. Emily's mouth hung open, her face drained of color, but my dad interrupted before she could speak. Your dad, he started, looking at me, had nothing to do with the permit process. I dealt directly with the Department of Building and Safety. I submitted everything, waited for the approval, handled all the contacts. I even documented every contractor meeting. If needed, I can provide all of it for court. The silence that followed was suffocating. But I stood tall, unwavering. I'm not going to let anyone, family or not, take away what I've worked for my entire life, just because they want a fancy wedding. Jessica, you can't do this, my mom choked out, her voice cracking. You're tearing this family apart over a house. No, Mom, I replied, my tone quiet but resolute. You're all destroying this family by treating me like a walking ATM. I didn't wait for them to respond. I reached for my phone, dialing a number I'd saved long ago. Hi, David. It's Jessica. Could you resend all the house contracts and deeds to my email? I need printed copies today. And while you're at it, contact the security company. I want the locks changed and surveillance installed before tomorrow night. My dad's face reddened, his voice low and stern. You're crossing a line. A line? I turned back to face him, my voice calm yet firm. The line was crossed when you walked into my home and started planning a wedding without even asking me. The line was crossed when I was treated like an obstacle just because I don't have a family. I've been silent for long enough. Emily stepped back, clutching her dress, looking completely caught off guard. I thought you'd cave like you always do. I cut her off before she could finish. You were wrong. I swung open the large front door, and the scent of lavender from the plants I'd carefully placed around the yard drifted in. You've got 10 minutes to leave. If you don't, I'll consider this trespassing and take appropriate action. They just stood there, staring at me in stunned silence. My mom began to cry, but I felt nothing. My dad turned away, and Emily glared at me like I was the traitor. Jessica, she whispered, her voice trembling with disbelief. I didn't think you could be this heartless. I simply shrugged, my tone unflinching. I'm just protecting what's mine. If that bothers you, maybe it's time you learned how to build something with your own two hands, instead of waiting for someone else to hand it to you. I shut the door behind them. My hands still trembled, but I didn't back down. This was my life now, and I wasn't letting anyone take control of it anymore. Less than 2 hours after they left, my phone began buzzing relentlessly, messages from Aunt Megan, Uncle Greg, and even my cousin, who I hadn't heard from in over 3 years. All of them echoed the same sentiment: family comes first, Jessica. Don't be so selfish. One person called me a walking refrigerator, while another texted, you only have one sister. Houses can be rebuilt, but family ties, once broken, can't be fixed. I read through every message, my mind clear and unshaken. Not a single person asked me why I'd done what I did. None of them cared that I was the one who had sacrificed everything, sweat, tears, and years of my youth into every inch of this house. I set my phone down and poured myself a cup of peppermint tea. As the steam rose from the mug, I suddenly remembered when I was 14 and Emily had lost the bracelet our mom gave her, only to blame me for it. I got grounded for a week, while she was taken to buy a new bracelet, 3 times more expensive. Today's incident was nothing new, just on a bigger scale, and this time, I wasn't staying silent. The phone rang. It was Emily. I stared at the screen, hesitation creeping in. I didn't pick up, but just seconds later, a voicemail popped up. I paused for a moment before pressing play. Jessica, her voice oozing with mockery, you should really take a look in the mirror. You're jealous of me, always have been. I'm the one who's loved, the one chosen as maid of honor, the one getting the big wedding. And you've got an empty house and a bunch of papers no one cares about. That's not winning, Jessica. That's just loneliness. I ended the message before she could finish. Jealous? That word had become a stale line in Emily's script. Every time I disagreed with her, it was because I was jealous of her pampering, jealous that someone was always bailing her out, jealous that she lived off others' goodwill without ever paying the price. I opened my contacts and blocked Emily's number, then my mom's, and then my dad's. 3 quick taps, and the world became unsettlingly quiet. I sat there, alone, in the spacious kitchen with its glossy granite countertops, the warm afternoon light streaming in through the glass doors. The silence was almost freeing, no more questions, no more demands, just me and the home I fought so hard to protect. I thought the storm had finally passed. That is, until my inbox started filling up with emails from relatives far and wide. One from Aunt Megan had the subject in bold, "How could you ruin your sister's wedding like that?" Another email from one of my mom's old friends included the line, "I can't believe Jessica turned out to be so controlling. The family used to be so proud of you." I couldn't help but let out a dry laugh. Everyone had their opinions, especially when they weren't the ones footing the bill for the foundation. That night, sleep wouldn't come. I opened my laptop, scrolling through every document related to the villa project, from the initial sketches to the invoices for the materials. I backed everything up to a separate hard drive, then sent a full copy over to my lawyer, James. The next morning, I called David. "Hi, Jessica. I read your email. What's going on?" "I need to be ready for anything," I said, my tone firm. "If they try to claim ownership of the house, I want every legal document, every piece of evidence, and every witness statement. And I need to know, if it comes to it, can I file a restraining order?" David was silent for a beat, then replied, "I'll start working with everything you've given me. You've got a very strong case." I felt a bit lighter after that, but my focus didn't waver. That afternoon, while reviewing the design plans for a new project, the doorbell rang. On the security monitor was a familiar face, Emily, holding a pristine white wedding dress, standing next to Greg, the fiancé I'd met just once. I didn't answer the door. Emily rang the bell twice more, then started knocking. I could see her expression shift from hopeful to something more dramatic. I stayed seated, sipping on a now-cold cup of tea. A notification popped up on the security system, "Cloud backup of footage complete." I couldn't help but smile. I didn't know what Emily was planning next, but this time, I had more than just locked doors and concrete walls. I had evidence, I had the law on my side, and most importantly, I had myself, Jessica, the one who no longer stayed quiet and would never let anyone else decide her future again. Just 3 days after the confrontation with Emily and my parents, I received an email from my attorney, David Miller, who had been with me since the early days of the villa project. The subject line was direct, "Restraining order approved." I opened the attachment and read each bolded line carefully. The Santa Clara City Court had officially granted a restraining order against Emily Davis, John Davis, and Linda Davis. They were prohibited from coming within 100 feet of any property owned by Jessica M. Davis. Any violation would be considered a legal infraction. I let out a long breath, like a heavy weight had been lifted off my chest. The house I had built with everything I had, every ounce of energy, sweat, and sacrifice, was now officially protected the way it deserved to be. That afternoon, I made another call to the security company to finalize the surveillance system. I had them integrate smart alerts with my phone and even had a remote-controlled gate installed with facial recognition. No one outside my approved list would be stepping foot on my property anymore. While the technicians worked on the system, James called. "Jessica, I've sent the official notice and copies of the restraining order to all 3 of them. I've also backed up all the emails and video footage from that confrontation. If they try anything, we've got enough to take this to court." "Thanks, David," I replied, glancing out the glass windows at the sunset painting the valley in shades of orange and pink. All I want is to live in the space I created, without constantly looking over my shoulder around my own family. Trust me, Jessica, David said with certainty, after seeing that order, they'll be the ones walking on eggshells. The weekend arrived faster than I expected. What I initially thought would be a cancelled housewarming, thanks to the family drama, turned into a heartfelt celebration. I invited only the people who truly mattered, colleagues who had been with me for over a decade, college friends who had shared small apartments with me, kind neighbors who kept an eye on the place when I was gone, and the team of architects who had helped bring my dream to life. Olivia, my best friend since school, was the first to arrive, holding a bright bouquet of yellow tulips. Jessica, this place looks even better than the renderings. I laughed, grateful. If it weren't for you, I would have given up during the permit stage. The atmosphere quickly lightened as people moved through the rooms, the spacious oak living room with its soaring ceilings, the open-concept kitchen featuring flawless white granite, and the fully soundproofed office where I planned to launch my next big project. As I led everyone outside to the backyard, the sunset stretched across the infinity pool. String lights wrapped around a few olive trees flickered to life, glowing softly in the evening breeze. One friend leaned over and whispered, "Jessica, just looking at this house makes me want to change my address right now." I smiled, finally feeling like I truly owned this place after weeks of tension. But the biggest surprise came at the end of the night. While guests enjoyed macarons and wine, I received a message from David. "Alert, Emily spotted near the property. Camera recognition shows her standing at the north corner of the street, but she's not crossing the restraining boundary. I've contacted local authorities to log the incident." I didn't react outwardly. Instead, I calmly locked the back door through my phone and activated the secondary alert system. No one at the party noticed a thing. I raised my glass, continued chatting, and kept smiling. By midnight, most guests had gone, and Olivia stayed behind to help me clean up. She stood on the terrace, gazing down at the valley, sparkling with lights. "Emily's mom called me yesterday," she said quietly. "She wants me to talk you into forgiving her. She said the family's in chaos. Emily's not eating, and you should be the bigger person." I paused, my eyes fixed on the view, before replying, "You know what gave me the most peace today?" "What?" "That, for the first time in my life, I threw a party without worrying someone would show up and ruin it." Olivia didn't say anything else. She just pulled me into a quiet hug. That night, I sat alone in the reading room, the soft light illuminating the new design plans spread across the table. This villa was no longer just a symbol of personal achievement, it had become the triumph of courage, of standing up for myself. A week after the housewarming party, I was in my office, reviewing plans for a lakeside housing development, when the doorbell rang. A notification popped up on my phone from the security system. "Visitor, Ethan Carter. Appointment confirmed via email." I frowned. Ethan was Emily's fiancé. We'd never really had a conversation, just a brief handshake at their engagement party a few months ago, which my parents had insisted I attend. I walked to the door. Ethan stood there, dressed in a neat grey suit, holding a thin folder. In the bright midday sun, his usual confidence seemed to have evaporated. His eyes were downcast, his jaw tight, like he was carrying something heavy. "Sorry for dropping by unannounced," he said, his voice quiet and slightly hoarse. "But..." I didn't know who else to talk to. I frowned, my mind racing. The landscaping crew was set to arrive tomorrow morning, and no one else was supposed to be in the house today. I quickly opened the camera app on my phone, and my heart nearly stopped. There was Emily standing in my living room, holding an iPad and gesturing around as she spoke. A group of about 8 well-dressed individuals stood around her, taking notes, likely investors or potential clients. As you can see, Emily's voice echoed through the screen. "This is the first in a series of luxury villas developed by my company, Davis Luxury Estates. I personally designed every detail of this villa. Early investors will receive exclusive incentives during the pre-sale phase." I almost dropped my phone. She was hosting an investment tour in my house, pretending to be the developer, the designer, and using my name for fraudulent gain. Without wasting a second, I dialed 911. "Santa Clara Police Department, how can I help you? There's an intruder in my home. using my property to solicit illegal investments. The address is 42, Hillside Drive, Villa registered under Jessica Davis. I have a court-approved restraining order, and the entire event is being recorded on my security system. I stepped aside to let the officer in, guiding him to the living room. He sat down across from me, placing a folder on the table as though presenting evidence in a courtroom. Emily told me this house was hers, he started, his eyes not meeting mine. She said it was a wedding gift from her parents, but it was under your name just for tax reasons. I smiled faintly. So that's the story she's using now. Ethan, visibly uncomfortable, swallowed hard. I believed her. She was convincing. But after your housewarming party, when I saw your name engraved on the reading room wall, I started to question I stayed silent, allowing him to continue. She got evasive when I asked about the paperwork. And recently, I found out she's been using her parents' names to apply for a large bank loan. I checked our accounts and found a bunch of strange transactions, money being withdrawn and transferred to an account linked to a real estate company I've never heard of, Davis Luxury Estates. I frowned. That name sounded dangerously familiar. Ethan opened the folder and pulled out a few printouts. These are her recent social media posts. She's been impersonating a real estate developer, using pictures of your villa to promote herself. I took each page from him. Every photo twisted my gut. Emily stood in front of my wrought iron gate, holding blueprints, smiling professionally as if she were the lead architect. Another photo showed the kitchen area, captioned, "A space designed by me, elegant, minimal, and perfect for the modern family." I straightened up. You said she used your parents' names to apply for loans. Do you have proof? Ethan nodded, pulling out more documents. These are the credit applications. I believe the signatures are forged. I set the papers down, trying to remain composed. Have you confronted Emily? She denied everything, then accused me of being jealous, saying I didn't trust the person I was about to marry. But, Jessica, I think she's setting up something much bigger. This isn't just about me, it's about your entire family and her investors. I stood and walked over to my file cabinet, pulling out a USB drive I had prepared earlier. It contained all the legal documents, construction contracts, licenses, and original design files, undeniable proof that I was the sole owner and principal designer of the villa. I'll send these to my attorney, I said slowly. We need to act fast before Emily escalates this any further. Ethan nodded, his expression hardening with resolve. Thank you for not brushing this off. After he left, I returned to my desk, opened my laptop, and sent an urgent email to David, attaching all the new documents. In the body of the message, I wrote just one line: she's not just lying to me, she's committing open fraud. We need to stop this immediately. That night, sleep eluded me. I sat in the reading room, staring out at the backyard, where soft lighting reflected off the water. This house, which had once represented freedom and success, now felt like a battleground, a place where I had to defend not just my property, but my dignity, my name, and everything I'd built against someone who had once been my own flesh and blood. Later that afternoon, just as I wrapped up a virtual meeting with my design team for the new project, my phone buzzed. A security system alert flashed across the screen, motion detected in the main hall. Unauthorized entry. Less than 10 minutes later, I could hear the distant sound of police sirens approaching. On my phone screen, Emily was still chatting in front of the group, but as two uniformed officers walked through the door, her words faltered. Police. Everyone stay where you are. Who is Emily Davis? Emily turned, her smile forced. Is there a problem? You're violating a restraining order, using property you don't own, and are suspected of committing financial fraud. You're coming with us for questioning. No, this is all a misunderstanding, Emily shouted, her voice cracking with panic. I was just giving a family tour of the project. But the guests, those potential investors, had already begun to step back, their faces changing from confusion to outrage. One man spoke up. Wait, this isn't her house. She said she was the lead developer. At that moment, I opened the front door, walking in with the property deed in hand. Apologies for the mix-up, I said, my tone calm but laced with controlled anger. I'm Jessica Davis, the sole legal owner of this house, and everything you've been told is a lie. Emily struggled against the officer's hold, tears welling in her eyes. "What are you doing in front of all these people?" "It's not me," I answered, locking eyes with her. "It's the law." I turned to the group, addressing them directly. "I encourage you all to double-check your sources before making any investments. She does not own a legitimate company, and there are no approved development projects. She's currently under investigation for impersonation, trespassing, and fraud." As the officers escorted Emily out to their cruiser, I noticed neighbors watching from across the street, some on their porches, drawn by the sirens and flashing lights. I stepped back inside, closed the door behind me, and let out a slow breath. Finally, the truth was out. I thought things would calm down after that, but just hours later, my phone rang. It was my mom. "Jessica, what were you thinking?" she screamed. "You had your own sister arrested in front of everyone. You've ruined our family's reputation." I took a moment to steady myself before replying. "I warned you. I won't let anyone take advantage of my hard work, not even family." She started sobbing. "You can't do this to your sister. She's just trying to build a future. By stealing my house, pretending to be me, and scamming investors." I shot back, my voice firm. "If you choose to defend her, you're on the wrong side." The call ended abruptly, and I stared at the screen, feeling hollow inside. That evening, I sent all the evidence to David: security footage, social media posts, Ethan's statement, and the copy of the deed. In the email, I wrote just one line: "We're moving forward with the lawsuit. Charges: impersonation, trespassing, and financial fraud." 3 days later, I was summoned to the Santa Clara Police Department to assist with the investigation. Detective Mike Evans, who was handling the case, met with me in a small conference room. A thick file and an open laptop displaying surveillance footage were already laid out. "Jessica, I need you to stay calm for what you're about to hear," he said, his voice measured. "We believe Emily's actions go far beyond this one fraudulent tour. The investigation is revealing a much larger fraud operation." I clenched my hands under the table, trying to keep my composure. "Based on banking data, security footage, testimony from her fiancé Ethan, and statements from defrauded investors, we've uncovered that Emily used your social security number, your professional credentials, including your real estate license, and your project experience to fabricate an entirely fake identity. She's been impersonating you for almost 8 months." I stared at him, speechless, my mind racing. Evans leaned forward. "She posed as you in a series of emails with investors. These people believed they were communicating directly with Jessica Davis, the successful developer in Santa Clara, and collectively transferred over $2 million into an account linked to a bogus company, Davis Luxury Estates." I struggled to breathe. $2 million? This is insane. Evans pulled out a series of bank statements and pointed to the transactions. These funds came from all over the country. Emily promised investors 20 to 30% returns within 6 months. She presented what she claimed were luxury villa designs, but in reality, they were photos of your home. I could barely catch my breath. "What about my parents? Do they know about all this?" Detective Evans nodded slowly, his face grim. "We believe they were at least partially aware of what was going on. Among the documents seized from Emily's home, we found loan applications, investment contracts, and signatures from John and Linda Davis. The bank records show those signatures were used to secure a $750,000 loan for Emily's fraudulent company." It felt like a bucket of ice water had been dumped over me. My throat went dry, and a sinking feeling hit me. "You're saying they're involved?" "We haven't made a final determination," Evans explained. "If they signed those documents believing the company was legitimate, they could be considered victims of Emily's fraud. But if they knowingly signed, aware Emily was impersonating you, they could face charges as co-conspirators." I lowered my head, the crushing weight of it all settling on me. The very family I had tried so hard to protect, despite their lack of support, might now be on the wrong side of the law. "We need you to confirm something," Evans said, his voice softer now. "Did you ever authorize Emily to use your name, your personal information, or your property for investment purposes?" I looked him in the eye, unwavering. "Never. Not once." He nodded, seemingly relieved by my answer. Thank you. That helps us immensely. We'll be expanding the investigation and referring the case to the county's Financial Crimes Division. Given the magnitude of the fraud and the false identities involved, Emily could be facing several years in prison. And if your parents are found to be complicit, they won't escape legal consequences either. I sat in silence for what felt like an eternity after the interview ended. When I reached my car, my phone buzzed with dozens of unread messages. One was from my mother. You can't imagine the pressure Emily's under. She's panicking. Can't you just drop the charges? Family is about forgiveness. I didn't reply. Later that evening, I sat at my desk, opened my laptop, and typed a quick email to David, my attorney. Subject: urgent media support. Body: we need to prepare for public backlash. If necessary, I'm ready to issue a press statement. I don't want anyone else to fall victim to Emily's lies. Let's discuss strategy first thing tomorrow. I sent the email and went to pour myself a glass of water. From the kitchen window, I watched the city lights twinkle in the distance, still calm, as though nothing had changed. But I knew this battle was far from over. And this time, I wasn't just defending my house, I was protecting my name, my reputation, and everything I had built with my blood, sweat, and tears. 3 days after meeting with the police, I received a call from St. Luke's Hospital. A nurse gently informed me that Emily had been admitted to the emergency room due to severe abdominal pain and was now in the maternity ward, 3 months pregnant. I froze. No one, not even Ethan, who had just ended their engagement, had mentioned anything about Emily being pregnant. The news hit me like a punch to the chest, not because I was concerned for her, but because I knew my mother would use this as her final manipulative play. And sure enough, less than an hour later, my mother called. Jessica. Her voice was different this time, trembling, almost pleading. Your sister, she's pregnant. She's not doing well. The doctor said her emotional state could affect the baby. I stayed silent. You've already won, Jessica. You have the house, the career, the world backing you. What more do you need? Your sister's lost everything, and now she's carrying a child. Do you really want to send her to jail right now? I took a deep breath, steadying myself. Mom, you just said Emily's lost everything, but you're forgetting one important thing. What she's holding onto isn't life, it's a lie. And as for the baby, if you truly care about that child, you need to let justice take its course. No one can raise a child on stolen money and a fake identity. On the other end, my mother began to cry uncontrollably. You're so cruel, Jessica. No, Mom, I said, my voice sharp now. I'm ending the cycle of enabling, covering up, and unconditional forgiveness that only led to betrayal. I paused, my voice tightening as I added, do you even realize how many loan papers you signed for Emily? Your name is now part of an open investigation. You're calling me cruel, but you're the one dragging this family down with blind trust. The call ended abruptly, without a goodbye. The following week, a storm of legal proceedings hit. Police officers, prosecutors, and even representatives from the defrauded investors filled the room for the preliminary hearing. I was called as a key witness. Ethan also stepped forward, presenting emails, messages, loan documents, and most crucially, testifying that Emily had asked him to pretend to be a co-founder of the company in order to gain investor trust. Throughout the investigation, Emily refused to cooperate. She claimed it was all a misunderstanding between sisters and argued that everything she did was to kickstart her own business. At one point, she even broke down in front of her lawyer, saying, I was the hypocrite, trying to destroy my own sister out of jealousy for someone else's happiness. The judge wasn't swayed. On sentencing day, the courtroom was filled with the press, victims, and those eagerly waiting for restitution. Emily entered, wearing an orange jumpsuit, her hands cuffed in front of her swollen belly, the child she had once hoped would be her excuse for everything. I sat in the front row, back straight, my eyes locked on the judge. Santa Clara County Court, the judge's voice echoed, after reviewing all evidence, witness testimonies, and financial records, finds the defendant, Emily Davis, guilty of financial fraud, identity theft, and unlawful trespassing. Total damages exceed $2 million. The defendant is sentenced to 10 years in prison. The room went quiet for a beat. Emily's expression was vacant, no defiance left, just emptiness. Behind me, Ethan sat in silence, his head bowed, deep in thought. But that wasn't the end. The judge continued, reading the sentence for my parents. Because their signatures appeared on loan documents and they had played a part in legitimizing some of the fraudulent fund transfers, they were considered indirect accomplices. However, due to their clean records and willingness to cooperate with the investigation, they received 3 years of probation and were ordered to pay $150,000 in civil penalties. I felt nothing, no satisfaction, no anger, just an odd sense of relief. Later that evening, I returned to the villa, the place where everything had started. I sat on the bench in the backyard, looking up at the starry sky. A soft breeze carried the scent of freshly bloomed lavender. It felt like the end of a chapter, no celebrations, no fanfare, just a quiet peace after the chaos. My phone buzzed. It was a message from David. "Jessica, we got it all back. Congratulations." I responded, "Not everything, but at least I did what was right this time." I placed the phone on the table and looked ahead. A new chapter was unfolding, one without the shadows of deceit, no empty promises, and no hidden expectations. 6 months after the sentencing, I stood on the rooftop terrace of the villa, a glass of white wine in my hand, gazing down at the perfectly manicured garden below. Rows of purple lavender bloomed along the stone walkway, just as I had envisioned in my original design. Everything had changed, not just the surroundings, but who I had become. The story of Emily's fraud had made headlines in local newspapers. At first, I feared the scandal would tarnish the reputation of my company, Davis and Hartman Development. But to my surprise, the opposite happened. It was my transparency, my strength, and my decisive actions in standing up for myself that made clients and partners view me in a new light. Instead of backing away, they reached out. New contracts came pouring in, from upscale lakeside housing developments to innovative commercial art spaces I had once only dreamed of. The city council invited me to speak at a forum on sustainable urban planning, and the press began calling my villa a symbol of modern women's resilience in the construction industry. I decided to embrace that narrative and let it inspire others. I began hosting charity events at the very house that had once been at the center of the storm. The first event was for the Newground Foundation, which supports women entrepreneurs in construction and architecture, women like me, who had to fight for their place in a male-dominated industry. I invited those who had stood by me through the darkest times, colleagues, friends, even Ethan, who, after everything, had chosen to speak up when it mattered and never looked back. Olivia, my lifelong best friend, stood by my side the entire night. After my short speech, she leaned in and whispered, "You know, Jessica, if you'd given up back then, everything would have turned out so differently. But look at you now. You didn't just build a house, you built a legacy." I smiled faintly. Not a monument, just a new foundation for a life that no one else gets to dictate. The following month, I was invited to speak at the statewide Urban Development Conference. Rather than focusing on achievements, I chose to share the raw truth. The countless times I was underestimated because I was a woman in the field, the family that tried to take everything I had worked for, and the moment I chose to stand up and fight back. When I finished, the room erupted in applause that lingered for what felt like an eternity. Afterward, a senior architecture student approached me, her eyes bright. "You've given me hope that I, too, can overcome the expectations placed on me by my family and society. Thank you." Her words nearly brought tears to my eyes, not because I saw myself as anything special, but because I had once been that girl. Now, I was living proof that you could remain true to your principles without sacrificing your dignity to please others. One quiet weekend afternoon, I sat in my reading room, reviewing plans for a new plot of land in northern Santa Clara, a project I was calling Everlight Villas. These would be eco-friendly homes specifically designed for single mothers, affordable, yet built to the highest standards of both design and functionality. David walked in, carrying a stack of documents. "The infrastructure board approved the first phase proposal," he said, setting the papers down with a slight grin. "I've never seen them act so fast." I glanced up, keeping my focus on the map spread across the table. "I want this to be a fresh start for women who thought there was no place for them in this world." He studied me for a moment, his gaze sharp. Jessica, after everything you've been through, you've kept your heart intact. It's stronger now, more solid. No one can push you around anymore. I laughed softly. Because now I know where my boundaries are, and I'll never let anyone cross them, not even family. The room softened in that moment. Outside, the sky turned a brilliant orange as the sun began to set, its light filtering through the curtains and casting a warm glow on the new designs, plans not just for homes, but for the future I was now shaping, one free from manipulation. One crisp early autumn morning, before the sun had even dried the dew on the stone steps, I found a cream-colored envelope tucked into my mailbox. There was no return address, only familiar handwriting, Jessica Davis. I paused for a moment, the weight of the situation sinking in. I knew exactly who had written it. I took the envelope into the reading room, sitting by the window where soft morning light poured in, the air cool and still. The scent of chamomile tea lingered on the table. I opened the letter slowly, not in haste, but without hesitation. Jessica, I don't know if I even have the right to call you my sister anymore, but if there's even a shred of something left between us, I hope you'll read this to the end. I'm going to be a mother. It's a girl. The doctor says she's healthy. I felt her kick for the first time last week, and I cried not because of the pain, but because, for the first time in my life, I wanted to do something right. I know that no apology will ever undo what I did to you, to your home, to your name, or the trust you once had in this family. But I'm trying to change, bit by bit. Every day in prison is a confrontation with myself, no makeup, no facade. I see the emptiness I've been living with for so long. You don't have to forgive me. But if one day my daughter asks about the first woman in our family who built a career from scratch, who had the courage to stand up for herself, I want to tell her about you, Jessica Davis. I hope you find peace, and if you can't forgive me, please believe that this time, I really do want to be different. Emily. I folded the letter slowly, then placed it in the bottom drawer of my filing cabinet, a place for things that don't belong in the present, but can't quite be thrown away. I wasn't sure how to feel, not anger, not forgiveness, not even sadness. Perhaps just silence, like standing at the edge of a cliff, with no fear, only emptiness. Later that evening, I walked through the backyard garden, my usual sanctuary after a long day. Olivia called, inviting me on a weekend getaway to Monterey. I said yes, knowing I had earned the break. Before bed, I flipped open my notebook, turned to the first page of the Everlight Villas project, and added one more checkmark: groundbreaking ceremony next month. I paused, looking at the line written in fountain pen, and smiled. Life moves forward. There's still work to be done, homes to be built, not just with money, but with trust, trust in resilience, trust in justice, and, most of all, trust in myself. I don't know if Emily will ever change. I don't know if I'll ever be able to see her without thinking about everything that's happened. But what I've learned is that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing to let go of the past so it doesn't control your present. And while the word reconciliation may never apply to me and my family, I no longer feel the need to apologize for living life on my own terms. I've learned to release what I can't control, so I can focus on what I can build. This villa, for example, it's no longer just a structure, it's a testament to the things you fight to protect and the moments you have to say no in order to safeguard your light. The next morning, I woke to the sound of birds outside my window. The sun was rising slowly, steady and calm, just like me now. I made myself a cup of coffee, sat at my desk, and started planning my upcoming presentations. On the screen, the new tagline beneath my company's logo stood out boldly: "Success is yours. Don't let anyone take your light." And I knew, without a doubt, that I was living this truth every day. From everything I've been through, I've learned that the people who hurt us the most are often the ones closest to us. But from that very pain, I've learned how to stand firm, how to protect what I've built, and how to defend the values I hold dear. Forgiveness doesn't mean erasing the past, it means choosing to move forward without carrying the weight of someone else's mistakes. Success doesn't need validation from anyone else, it only requires that you know who you are, what you're doing, and why you're doing it. No one can take away the light you've earned for yourself. What do you think of Jessica's journey and the decisions she made? Share your thoughts in the comments below, And don't forget to follow the channel for more inspiring stories about life's challenges and triumphs.